Good morning, and welcome to UPMC's virtual speaker series. Our topic this morning is on holiday grief support. Before we begin today's program, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Stan Carey, UPMC's Community Outreach Specialist, and I will be your host for today's event. We are joined this morning by members of the grief support team at UPMC who will discuss strategies to help you or someone you love during the holidays. As a reminder, feel free to submit your questions below in the comment section, or you can submit them to Ashley Stensland. She is UPMC's Volunteer and Bereavement Coordinator. She is joined by Ed Siddle, UPMC's Chaplain in Wellsboro, and Kimberly Maines, UPMC Medical Social Worker and Hospice Grief Support Coordinator. In addition, we would like to give a quick shout out to our Age Well and Spirit of Women members. We appreciate you joining us this morning. With that being said, I will hand it off to Kimberly Maines.
Good morning. It's our pleasure to be here with you today to talk about this important topic of grief. It's something that we all feel very compassionate about and do on a daily basis with our jobs. And grief over the holidays can be very difficult to navigate. So I just wanted to start out with a quote that I feel like can be very helpful for us to keep in mind over this holiday season. Through my grief process, I don't want to be admired for my strength, nor pitied for my weakness. I just want to be understood. Some days I may be strong, and some days I may be weak. I choose neither. This is important for us all to remember, that grief is very unpredictable. It can be very personal, it's very complex, and it can come and go without warning. It can even happen years after our loved ones die. So often the holiday seasons are about traditions and being with family, and it can be heightened. Those intense feelings of grief can be heightened over the holidays. Certain smells, foods, photographs can trigger, a temporary upsurge in grief. So it can feel conflicting. Like if we're feeling joy over the holidays and feeling sad at the same time, that can also be really simultaneously, you feel this guilt over celebrating the holidays and feeling joy of being with your family. So there's often that conflict as well. And there's no pause button. There's no pause button when we're in these situations. But feeling pain while you're feeling joy is very normal. So some of the strategies that we can use is listening to your inner voice. You can choose to participate in a special event. You don't have to if it doesn't feel right to you. Or upon arrival, you can announce that you're not going to stay long. And then if things are going well and you feel like you're feeling okay with things, then you can stay longer and stay and participate.
Yeah. Let me interrupt.
Yeah.
Add something to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think also maybe before an event, family meal or whatever it is that you're going to do, to maybe even say that prior to coming. Like I want to come. I'm just not sure how long I want to stay. Maybe I could just come for dessert and not stay long. And that way, if you want to stay longer, you can. Yep. And if you don't want to, then you've already kind of paved the way for you to leave if you want to.
Exit strategy.
Right, an exit strategy.
Yeah. And also remember, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel overwhelmed and have those intense feelings. Give yourself some space, and a lot of people have identified coping strategies that they use to deal with overwhelming feelings, and some of the ones that we have identified was deep breathing is always a good one. Taking a walk, journaling, listening to music. I know positive affirmations is one that that you hold dear to your heart.
Right. So I would like to add a little bit about that. I think sometimes people think that crying is not good, or you're weak when you cry, or you don't want to be around a lot of people when you do cry. And I think that I had a guy say this to me once, and I've always remembered it because I'm a guy whose eyes leak. And he said, leaky eyes keep your head from getting big.
I love it.
But I think also that that crying and tears are cathartic. And, we all know sort of what a catheter does. I told you I was going to bring that up. It gets something out of you that needs to come out. And I think that tears are really an enabler for you to get this catharsis to your soul, to get something out. Oftentimes, after I go ahead and in a stressful situation, if I do let it go, I feel so much better afterwards. And so, my advice is, you can't predict when those tears come, but when they do, let them come. I believe they're a gift from God, just to help you to deal with something that is so traumatic to the deepest part of who you are. And so my advice, let 'em
and
rip
to
when
the
you
other
can.
side of that, if you're feeling happiness, let that into your grief space.
Amen.
And feel that. Feel the happiness too.
And I think all of you who are or have experienced grief know that often those things come together.
Yeah.
Tears, laughter, crying.
Yes.
It all seems to come pouring out, and it's okay.
They're not mutually exclusive feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah. And another important tip is that we are imperfect people living imperfect lives. And yet we put so much pressure on this one day for this day to be perfect. And if we can just shake that off right from the beginning and just take some of that pressure off of us.
Right. Exactly. My thought of that when I knew this is what you were going to say is, I think the anticipation of a holiday, especially when you're grieving and it's going to be tough to get through it, that the time leading up to it can be a lot harder than the day itself. And I think we live in a culture that as soon as Halloween's over, it's you're looking at Christmas and oh no, they're playing Christmas songs already.
Yes.
But to remember, it is really just that one day, and those times will pass.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying, maybe we'll have our family holiday in 6 months, or, not even setting a date, just saying when we're ready, we can have our own family celebration, whatever that looks like. We're not necessarily tied to the calendar. Sometimes we feel like we are because it's the season. And I think it's important to remember that your family, whatever your family looks like, whether that's blood relatives or close friends or, church family, that you can do whatever you need to do as far as celebrating. The timeline is open. It does not have to be.
Doesn't have to be that day.
Yeah, we can always cancel a holiday.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
good.
Right.
That's good advice.
And be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Something to really just keep in mind. Just be kind to yourself. Be healthy. And be kind to yourself.
Yeah, honor your emotional self. Emotions are not good or bad. They're real, and they can be raw, and they're okay.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So I think I was going to just talk a little bit about how we can support people that we know that are grieving, even if it's not us ourselves, because a lot of times I think that what I hear from people is that I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And I think that that's really, that's difficult because you want to show your love, but it's hard. It's hard to know. One of the biggest things that I think that we often tell people, we all work in hospice, is that grief is hard. It's messy work, and that it's just difficult. And it's experienced differently by everyone. Some people, might be very introverted about it and really self-reflective, and other people may be very expressive with their emotions. It really just differs from person to person. The important thing is to understand that grief is a normal, healthy response. Oftentimes, we really, really are uncomfortable with it. And as you both spoke about, it's really important to remember that it's okay to be sad, even though it's the holiday.
Yes.
Right.
We don't have to be stuck in that, it has to be the perfect time.
Holiday.
So we have to feel perfect and
Or
that's
feel like
okay.
you're going to ruin it for everyone else when
Yes.
everyone is
Yes.
joyful.
Right.
Absolutely.
But it's
Absolutely.
okay to be where you are. I'd
For
like to
sure.
add something
Sure.
there, if it's okay,
Mhm.
just to kind of normalize some of the feelings and some of the things that you might be going through. My wife, when she lost her mother, and it was very sudden and unexpected, and we were in a transition from living in a foreign country to coming and living back here in Williamsport, and we were trying to set up house and contact what garbage company to use and what all these things. And she told me, she goes, I have no memory. I feel like I cannot function. I cannot do this. Am I losing my mind? She asked me.
Mm.
And what I told her, I believe, was a word from the Lord. I said, I think it's just completely normal.
Mm.
And it's okay. It was extremely scary to her because she's intelligent, she's
Mhm.
together, she's kind, she's always present. And to not be was so hard for her.
Absolutely.
And to hear that it was normal relieved her. It didn't make it go away or make it all better, but that it is a normal response to think you're losing your mind.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you've experienced trauma at the
Mhm.
deepest part of yourself.
I think we hear that a lot
Mhm.
from people,
Absolutely.
asking the question, am I going crazy?
Mhm.
Is this normal? And it's all normal for you.
Right?
And I think that's a really important thing. One of the things that I think is hard when you're trying to support someone is that you want them to be happy. You want to fix them. You want them to not have to feel the pain that they feel. Unfortunately, it's just part of the process, as we know. And acknowledging that is really an important first step. We think happy means healthy. And, you both touched on that as well, that, you want to be healthy in your way, what makes sense for you. And that's important. Another thing is to be careful with sentiment. I think, we say things, we use platitudes because we want to fix our person. And there's a famous author and speaker who's a social worker, Brene Brown. Most of us have heard of her. She has this one phrase that she uses, and she says, "Nothing good ever comes after the words 'at least.'" And I think that that's one of
So
those
true.
things that you really have to learn. This is a process as human beings, how to relate to one another, and we don't escape from grief. It's really important to remember that. Think about what you're going to say, and is it because I want to fix this, or is it because it's really going to be helpful?
Right. Yeah, I think that the words "at least" minimize, or it minimize a person's feelings.
Absolutely.
And that it is so deep that how could at least anything help?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Or even, and maybe you're going to cover it, the things about God, and we say these things. Well, God just needed one of His angels, or things like that can just create doom and gloom, more so than comfort. And that listening to a person's heart is just a better way to go than trying to offer something if you don't know what to say.
Sure. And that actually,
and it's hard.
that is on my list is, when you use spiritual or religious references or phrases, do it with care and in context. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Just for that very reason is, we may be thinking that we're going to offer someone comfort, but is that where they're at?
Mhm.
And we have to remember that we don't want to minimize where they're coming from. What are your intentions for what you're saying? Really checking yourself. Again, this is all a process that we are learning as professionals, and I think that we all learn as we go through life and how to relate to someone, in the name of helping. Our motives are really important to keep in check. Meet them where they're at, and we talked about that a little bit too already. I'm just kind of reiterating a lot of things. Kim, did you have something that you were going to say?
I was just going to say, as the person who's grieving too, it's important if someone did something for you, even if it's just a text message, I think it's important to say, like, that was really meaningful. Like, you really sent that at the time that I really needed it. Because it helps give that feedback, because oftentimes we don't know what to do. So sometimes we don't do anything because we're uncomfortable with knowing what to do. So, sometimes it's good to have that feedback too. Like,
For sure.
I really appreciated you leaving that meal because I couldn't get up today and possibly think, and I probably wouldn't have eaten, or, whatever the case may be. Sometimes that feedback is good.
Absolutely. I agree. And meeting them where they're at includes,
Yeah.
it includes letting the grieving person take the lead and you just kind of listening and being attentive to them and what they're saying in their verbals and nonverbals. It's just really important to be in the moment and be present and receiving kind of what they're telling you.
Saying. My wife, she read it. It was a quote from someone, and I don't know where it came from, but she says it often, that being listened to is as close to being loved that you really cannot define the difference between the two. And to be truly understood and listened to really helps a person. And we're not naturally good listeners.
Right.
We want to offer advice. We want to say something. But oftentimes just reflecting back what a person is saying and trying really to get and understand at a heart level of what they're saying, and to listen to understand rather than to listen to respond.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's such a process, isn't it?
That's for sure.
It really is.
And none of us are perfect at it, but it's good to be reminded.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think, just shifting from making them feel better to making them feel heard, just to kind of summarize that point. Sharing memories and not being afraid to say the person's name. That's a big one. And I know for us at hospice, when we hold our memorial service, we make a point to read every single patient's name. If you ever watch the 9/11 service on TV, they say every single person's name. It is acknowledging their existence, acknowledging, just a tiny little piece of who they are. And I think that that's important, that sometimes we don't want to make the person cry, so we don't say their name.
Right.
And we're really missing out on acknowledging them in that way. And especially if you knew the person, sharing memories, things like that. Again, it's acknowledging their presence and their importance in that person's life. Asking questions, you touched on that a bit. The other piece of it is just saying, what would be meaningful to you? What would be important to you for this holiday? I know I've shared the story before about a relative of mine who didn't really want any decorations, but she wanted lights. That was the most important thing, was having the lights up. And it seemed kind of odd. It seemed kind of strange. Nothing else. But that was what was meaningful to her.
Wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. And rather than imposing what I thought was important, we just did lights.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
hearing that is super important. And remembering that grief looks like many things. It looks like, obviously the loss of someone, the death of someone. But additionally, that person may be experiencing losses in other areas. They may have to sell their home. They may have financial ramifications. They may have social ramifications. They're a single. They're no longer maybe a couple, or, whatever that looks like. Just remember that when you may be thinking, why aren't they getting over this? There's 1,000 other little griefs that go along with a loss.
It's really important. Absolutely.
Yeah. And just practically, helping with the mundane trash, taking care of that for them, pets, things like that. Be cautious if you're trying to help them clean up their home. So I know some people really struggle with not wanting to move that person's items, their reading glasses, their newspaper, things like that. So certainly that's a great way to help out, but definitely ask questions about that. The main things, just companionship, acknowledgement, bearing witness to their pain, embracing the awkward, if you will. I don't know how to help, but I want to be here for you, saying those things. And I think, just to kind of summarize what I was talking about, we need to remember that grief is an experience to be attended to, not a problem that we need to be trying to solve. And so, yeah, I think that's super important.
That's good. Yeah, I also just want to add to connecting to the spiritual, that we are all fearfully and wonderfully made, that we are all very unique and one of a kind in all of creation and all of the universe, but that we are also a three-part being where we are body, soul, which is your mind, will, and your emotions, and spirit, the deepest part of you. And Kim mentioned this still small voice. I believe that is the Lord, our creator, who speaks to us. And he may be leading you to just to bring you through this. He is present. You are not alone. And to take the time to pray, to meditate, to read scripture, to read a spiritual book, and to remember that there is this creator. There is a God who loves you and wants to be part of of your process and walk through it with you. And you can learn so much through this process from that time. Mm-hmm. There's a woman who goes to our church who recently lost her husband quite unexpectedly, and she told me that faith has been the anchor to her soul. It has been the mainstay for her to keep attached and gripped, and realize that that there is an anchor, there is a foundation, that there is a ray of hope. And I want to say that to everyone who's listening. There is hope, there is light, and you may not even be able to see the tiniest little speck, but it's there. And the Lord will bring you through this. Surround yourself with people who will listen. And if that's clergy, a pastor, someone from your church, or just a friend that you know that will spend time and listen. And it's hard to find those people sometimes, but seek those things. And always the Lord is listening, and He is there, and you're not alone. And I'm not sure how much time we have left. I was going to read something. We got a little time here. I wanted to mention another thing. Oftentimes, and not every time, but the Lord knows what you need, there will be some sign, some presence, something. And maybe it's an animal. I had one lady say that an eagle flew over her daughter's wedding, and her husband had died and loved eagles and what it meant to everybody. Sometimes just a presence, a smell, a song. I believe those are holy moments. I believe those are holy ground that the Lord is speaking you, to tell you and to assure you that you're not alone. You're never alone, and He's not going to leave you alone in this. I'm going to read from a book. It's by a guy named James Miller. He writes wonderful things on grief and bereavement, and I find this very comforting. But he says, I believe there is no denying that it hurts to lose. It hurts to lose a cherished relationship with another, as well as a significant part of one's own self. It can hurt to lose that which has anchored you with the past and that which has beckoned you into the future. It is painful to feel diminished or cut off or abandoned, or to be left behind or left alone. Yet I believe there is more to losing than just the hurt of the pain. But there are experiences loss can call forth. I believe that courage often appears, however quietly it is expressed, however easily it goes unnoticed by others. The courage to be strong enough to surrender, the fortitude to be firm enough to be flexible, the bravery to go where you have not gone before. I believe a time of loss can be a time of learning, unlike any other, and that it can reach some of life's most valuable lessons. In the act of losing, there is something to be found. In the act of letting go, there is something to be grasped. In the act of saying goodbye, there is a hello to be heard. For I believe living with loss is about beginnings as well as endings, and grieving is a matter of life more than of death. And growing is a matter of mind and heart and soul more than of body. And loving is a matter of eternity more than of time. I believe in the promising paradoxes of loss. In the midst of darkness, there can come a great light. In the middle of despair, there can appear a great hope. And deep within loneliness, there can dwell a great love. I believe these things because others have shown the way, and others have lost and then have grown through their losing. Others who have suffered and through their suffering found new meaning. Finally, I believe whoever we are, whatever has happened to us, and that we are not alone. We are accompanied day after day. We are held night after night. We are connected both here and into eternity. You're not alone. You're not alone.
It's beautiful.
Thanks for sharing that.
So we'll turn it over to any questions that we might have. Let's see. I've heard it's a good idea to create new traditions over the holidays. Can that help? What are some examples? So we talked about this earlier too, that, having a new tradition can really help, make things feel better and more comfortable. It can be as simple as choosing your loved one's favorite meal and making sure you have that on the table every year. I saw one example was like naming the dish after your loved one, or having a holiday playlist where you have like your favorite songs, their favorite songs, and maybe sing them together as a family, like Amazing Grace, or something like that would be beautiful. Having a memory tablecloth, and everyone sharing a memory or a positive affirmation or something about their loved one, something special to them, and then keeping that. Lighting a candle, you talked about that a little bit, and having it burn throughout the holiday season. Probably a fake one would be good, but, or a special light on the tree, or I don't know, just something that feels good to you, that you feel like you're honoring your loved one. I saw like having a special stocking and everybody writing like little stories or something and putting them in the stockings and then getting them out the following year and like reading them.
Yeah, that's great.
I know like my own tradition, like when my dad passed away many, many years ago, I have a little ornament that is a saying about how he's in heaven looking down on me this Christmas season. And I put it in the same spot on the tree, whether, the tree changes every year, but I put it in the same spot on the back of the tree near the angel. And that's just how one of the things that I do. And that was a new tradition that I had started. Someone got it to me, gave it to me as a gift, and it was so perfect. And I use it every year now.
That's neat.
Yep.
Those are great ideas.
So, and you were talking about this earlier too, like sharing stories, telling stories. Don't be afraid to talk about your loved one. That can be a new tradition, is just sharing stories too.
Yeah. Something that we do, we have this Christmas pyramid. It was my mom's. And we light the candles and we tell the Christmas story, and we sing some songs around it. But another neat thing, just that someone could do, is spend that time also just telling stories, remembering the person, talking about how that person has gifted you some way with their life.
Yes, it allows them to play a continuous story in our holiday season.
Those are great ideas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How can you help children deal with loss over the holidays?
It's tough.
I think a lot of the same things apply. Listen to them, allow them to talk, allow them the space to, just be quiet if that's, what they prefer.
And we talked about this earlier too, that they watch us.
Absolutely.
Right.
And how we handle our grief. They're watching,
Right.
and they're going to learn from us. It's okay to cry. Going back to that.
Yes.
It's okay to show emotions.
Right.
And being honest with children,
Absolutely. According to their age, obviously,
Yes.
you want to take that into consideration, but definitely being honest with them.
Yep.
I think, the spiritual plays a big part in this too, knowing that your loved one is not gone, not forgotten, but just moved out of this earthly body and is in a new place, and that they are present. And one of the traditions that I was reading that someone does is they write letters to their loved one and then attach it to a balloon and let it go. I think it would be a wonderful thing for a child
Love
to do a
that.
Christmas card, to write a letter, to,
Mhm.
share their feelings and help them to get in touch with those feelings
Absolutely.
and attach that to a balloon. And if it's not snowing or raining on Christmas, or, if the
love
weather's
that.
right, to let that balloon go together. That's a
See
letter
if they
to
have
Dad.
any suggestions too.
Absolutely.
Yes,
You know,
boy,
they
that's
might.
good.
Mhm, They're
They
very
might.
creative.
I think just the other piece is just, if there are support groups in your area, I know here we do have support groups for children and adults. That's something to look into as well, just to surround yourself with other people that might be going through some similar things.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for those
Great
questions.
question.
Yeah.
In closing, Family Hospice, part of UPMC's Home Health Care of Central Pennsylvania, services 14 counties in the North Central PA region, with offices in Williamsport, Wellsboro, and Coudersport. Grief support groups are available in person and virtually free of charge to anyone in the community that is dealing with a loss. For more information, please call 570-326-8952. Again, that is 570-326-8952. Have a good day.